The first thing to say about One Last Breath is that it makes a great first impression. Coated in an art style reminiscent of Playdead's two classic games Limbo and Inside, developer Monastic Studios has certainly nailed that aesthetic with its haunting 2D puzzle platformer. Its protagonist Gaia is enveloped within a world where dark tones of blacks and grey accompany and shadow her as she traverses through an apocalyptic and harrowing world, devoid of human existence but one stained with traces of a past where human greed has brought Earth to its knees. Cars have been abandoned, lands have been ravaged, and what seemingly appears to be giant test tubes or containers of some kind can be found busted open and littered across the landscape. But what had they once inhabited? Glad you asked, because it's not long before shadowy figures of grotesque looking mutants can be seen stalking the surroundings. And some of these will certainly bring back unwanted memories of the clickers from The Last of Us. Unlike the clickers, however, these are not blind, and you would do very well to stay out of their line of sight, because otherwise they will let out the most disgusting, nerve-shredding of growls as they spot and sprint towards you. And let me tell you, you better remain unseen or at least have a huge head start. Otherwise, as no doubt you'll find out multiple times throughout the course of this game, these filthy creatures will not hesitate to devour your sorry carcass. But what is this place? How did human life seemingly become extinct? And who in the hell is our protagonist Gaia? In other words, what's the story? Well, we don't really get told too much at all. It's evident Earth, or Mother Nature at least, is in trouble. How and why, we're not told outright. Instead, One Last Breath takes the same approach as Limbo and Inside, using environmental storytelling. As you wander through the different locations, keeping your eyes peeled, you'll come across corporate advertising boards overlooking barren lands which show a telling logo hinting at experiments of some kind. Elsewhere, you'll visit laboratories with evidence pointing to the same suspicions. But again, why and for what purpose, we are not sure. What is apparent, however, is Earth has been stripped of all its resources, and except for some animal life, all other life seems extinct. It falls upon Gaia then, who seems to have been born with Mother Nature's last breath, to fight back. In doing so, Gaia will have to venture through many treacherous locations, overcoming roaming creatures in her quest to get to the source which has Earth on the cusp of ruin. That's a tall order, so Gaia better be equipped with the abilities for such a mission, and that she does. Very early on, we are shown how Gaia has the unique ability of controlling nature around her. It's here that One Last Breath's core gameplay mechanics are revealed to us. At certain junctions, you'll be given the opportunity to interact with a sample of what seems to be roots. In doing so, Gaia is able to control and manipulate vines and branches, allowing you to bridge gaps or swing across platforms. You'll also need to use these abilities to complete various puzzles, none of which I found too much of a head scratcher though. Sometimes you'll need to reduce the overgrown roots to reveal a pathway or a lever to a platform that needs moving. That kind of thing. Other times the puzzles include interacting with a present object like blocks that need to be pushed over a switch or used as leverage to climb onto a higher ground. These again are much in the same vein as the ones you would see in a game like Inside, but they don't quite reach the same level of complexity as that title, and therefore don't provide the same level of satisfaction once completed, but they don't outstay their welcome either. And that's not to say there isn't variation on display here, there very much is. Without giving too much away, the way in which you interact with the roots and the powers they grant Gaia alter the further you progress. At certain points, these roots will have to be activated before they can be utilized, and at other points they'll grant you the ability to shield yourself into a bubble temporarily from poisonous gases, allowing you precious seconds to delve deeper into the depths of increasingly dangerous surroundings. These mechanics kept the gameplay fresh and interesting enough to keep me engaged and intent on finding out what else they had in store for me. And to that point, I must give a special mention to the sound design here, which for me does an excellent job in bringing together the overall package. One Last Breath's theme is melodic and haunting in nature, perfectly instilling a sense of unease, very fitting of the world. It's distinct from, say, the theme music from Little Nightmares, but has a similar effect. Elsewhere, when the decibels drop, you'll be abruptly jolted by the sound of shrieking mutants rushing towards you as you try and escape. The sense of dread is then amplified through the heavy panting of Gaia's breath. It's very effective. The game performs well enough too on a technical level, with consistent frame rates which I didn't test with a counter but seemed to hover around the 30 FPS mark. The only time I experienced any hiccup in this regard was during a 5-second segment towards the latter stages of the game, but that was the single only time. Otherwise, it seems very consistent. Resolution also seems consistent. It could be a little sharper in areas, but again, otherwise no reason to complain. One thing that did cross my mind at various points of the game, however, was the visual quality of the mutants, in particular the earlier ones. It would have been nice to have had more detailed character models with more sophisticated animations to better convey their terror. And whilst we're talking about animations, my mind again went back to Inside and the amount of work that went into all the character death animations. It would have been nice to have had something similar in One Last Breath, but at this point we're just nitpicking. One Last Breath then is a game I can very easily recommend. I had a great time during its short 3 to 4 hour game time. I felt drawn in by its atmosphere and was always curious to dive deeper into the world of intrigue. It's a very well conceived and executed game that with a little bit more polish and flair would have ranked as high as games such as Limbo and Inside and even the Little Nightmares series. But as it stands, whilst it just misses those heights, it's still a great game with a lot going for it, including a talented studio worth keeping an eye on. One Last Breath scores an 8 out of 10 from me, and you can go and check it out right now.